Before the 2024-2025 NBA offseason began, I would go around asking people that I know that loves the game of basketball, that watches basketball. I would ask them who did they see taking a step back in the Western Conference this season. And the two answers that I heard the most, and at the time I agreed with both answers, I heard about the Golden State Warriors, and I also heard the Los Angeles Clippers. And in the Los Angeles Clippers case, it was a lot going on for them at the time. They had just lost Paul George in free agency because they didn't want to give him that fourth year that he was looking for on his contract extension. So he goes to Philadelphia, and then they also got some unfortunate news that look, I'm ready to talk about Ben Simmons already, but Kawhi Leonard was going to be out the beginning of the season indefinitely, dealing with his knee injury. So under those circumstances, I didn't see the Los Angeles Clippers being as competitive as we saw them be throughout the first half of the season. And obviously the Los Angeles Clippers, they had proved all the naysayers wrong, they had proved all the doubters wrong, and they were able to hold down the fort while their team was nowhere near 100% or how good they could be. We look at the Los Angeles Clippers during the first half of the NBA season. They finished 6th place in the Western Conference, which means if the playoffs were to start today, they were good enough to have that guaranteed spot in the Western Conference playoffs. And we know how great that conference is. It's really competitive from like teams 1 through 12. So they finished with the 31-23 record, and then they also closed out the All-Star break in great fashion, winning 6 out of their last 10 ball games, and also finishing it out on a 3-game winning streak. And we look at what the Los Angeles Clippers were able to do in that first half of the season. They were just simply one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. I believe right now they rank 3rd in the NBA in defensive rating, and throughout the first half of the season, they were nowhere near outside of the top 5. So that's been their identity this season. They play amazing team defense, and that mostly has to do with their coach Tyronn Lue. He's a great coach when it comes to X's and O's, and he just knows how to do a great job of taking away the opposing team's best method of scoring. So they've been terrific on the defensive side of the ball. And then James Harden, he was able to produce enough offense for this team for them to win games. And then obviously Norman Powell, who should have been an all-star this season, he's averaging 24 points per game. He's been super efficient, and he's really had a career year for the Los Angeles Clippers. So James Harden and Norman Powell on the offensive side of the ball, and the defensive genius from Coach Tyronn Lue. So now I think the Los Angeles Clippers, they put themselves in a terrific situation because now they have Kawhi Leonard coming back, and I know he's been back, but he hasn't been fully back. He's played 15 games so far this season. He's looked very decent in most of his games. It looks like he still has that walking bucket inside of him, but he's been back 15 games for the Los Angeles Clippers, only playing 26 minutes per game so far, but the minutes are going up and up. He's averaging 16 points per game, 46% from the field, and 35% from the three-point line. So I think as the season goes on, these last 25-30 games of the season, we're going to continue to see Kawhi Leonard gets better and better. And this is great for the Los Angeles Clippers because we talked about how they were so great on the defensive side of the ball and how great James Harden and Norman Powell has been individually offensively, but as a whole on the offensive side of the ball, the Los Angeles Clippers, they haven't been that good this season. But when you're bringing in a player like Kawhi Leonard, who literally draws double teams, he could literally changes the opposing team's different game plan. And when you have a player like that out on the court, it makes things a lot easier for everybody else on the offensive side of the ball, for guys like Derrick Jones Jr., for guys like Ivica Zubac, for guys like Norman Powell. They're going to start to see a lot more easier shots, and we're going to see the offensive rating rise even more on this team. So they got Kawhi coming back, and then the Los Angeles Clippers, they did something at the NBA trade deadline that might have had come to a shock to a lot of people, and that was sign Ben Simmons from the Brooklyn Nets. And how that happened, the Brooklyn Nets, they brought Ben Simmons out of his contract, which made him a free agent, and he was picked up by the Los Angeles Clippers. And this is a big time move for so many different reasons, and this can be so beneficial for both Ben Simmons, and this can also be very beneficial for the Los Angeles Clippers. And we look at Ben Simmons, and as of late, people like to look at Ben Simmons so simply, or they look at him in a very simple manner, which is understandable. The last couple of years for him has been very, very crazy as an NBA basketball player. And we all know where it started. I believe that was the 2021 NBA playoffs where he had that dunk where he had like an easy look at the basket, and it was Trae Young right there, and he didn't go up. And then the Philadelphia 76ers, this was the second round of the playoffs, they ultimately ended up losing that series. And afterwards, Ben Simmons, he got scapegoated by the head coach at the time, Doc Rivers, and also scapegoated by the best player on the team, Joel Embiid. And since that series, Ben Simmons, he has not been the same. It's not like he lost his basketball skills physically, but he lost his basketball powers up here in his mind. His psyche was completely destroyed after that. They shipped him out of the Philadelphia 76ers, and then they shipped him to the Brooklyn Nets, and then that was a bad situation to go to as well. The Brooklyn Nets at the time, when they had Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, some very unfortunate things went on off of the basketball court that just wasn't with all of the media attention, it just wasn't the best spot for Ben Simmons at the time. And then it got even worse as the Brooklyn Nets, they became an uncompetitive team. And when you're an uncompetitive team, and when you have a player like the Ben Simmons, who, like we said, we know Ben Simmons has not lost any of his basketball talent. It's hard to put all that work in over the years, and then all of a sudden you can't hoop anymore. It's a mental thing. So being on the Brooklyn Nets, where they're not being competitive, they're not winning any games, they didn't really have any reason to try to boost the morale of Ben Simmons or really try to have him be the face of that franchise. The Brooklyn Nets, they weren't looking to do that, so they brought him out of his contract, and now they bring him to the Los Angeles Clippers, where I think they have one of the best coaches in the NBA in Tyronn Lue, because he's played in the NBA before, he's played in the NBA Finals, and he's seen a lot of basketball, and he's also seen a lot of personalities. This is a guy that was able to challenge and coach LeBron James during their 2016 run to the NBA Finals. So I think getting Ben Simmons under somebody like Tyronn Lue, a player's coach, a guy that can relate to the players. And I've heard, I listened to the All the Smoke podcast when they interviewed Tyronn Lue. Like he eats, sleeps, breathes, and lives basketball. Like, that is his number one priority in his life. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. All he's focused on is coaching and winning basketball games. So I think getting Ben Simmons under somebody like Tyronn Lue, who loves the game of basketball, and they can start him off with a minimum role coming off the bench. We saw how effective he was in his first game with the Los Angeles Clippers. Coming off the bench in just 27 minutes, he had 12 points, 4 or 5 from the field. He had 7 rebounds and 6 assists. And just like how we said, Kawhi Leonard is a basketball player that's going to make things a lot easier for the Los Angeles Clippers. And I'm not going to say Ben Simmons is going to guarantee to do that. We can't say that off for one game after what we've seen the last couple of years, but I think the possibility is there. If they can get a motivated Ben Simmons, if Tyronn Lue can somehow get Ben Simmons to be that animal that he was his first couple of years in the NBA, an all-star caliber player, an all-NBA player, an all-defensive NBA player, a guy that's averaged 16 points in this league before, averaged 6, 7, 8 assists in this league before, it could be very monumental for the Los Angeles Clippers, because he's going to make them better on both the defensive side of the ball. We look at Ben Simmons as a defender. He's like 6'10", super athletic. He's probably not the on-ball defender that he used to be, that we saw when he was having his glory years with the Philadelphia 76ers, but still more athletic, still longer than most players in the NBA. And at the very least, he can probably guard 4 out of the 5 positions on the court. He might not be able to stay in front of a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but most guys in the NBA, you're going to be able to put Ben Simmons on him, or then just him as a weak side helper. Him as a weak side helper coming down to protect the rim and rebound the basketball, he's going to be beneficial in that aspect. And then also on the offensive side of the ball, I think the Clippers, like we said, we know they need some help boosting their offensive efficiency, boosting their offensive rating if they want want to make a deep playoff push. Ben Simmons, I think this is a really good roster. That this is a really good roster for him because they have plenty of 3-point shooters. They have James Harden, who's shooting 40%, close to 40% from 3-point land this year. Norman Powell is shooting lights out from 3-point percent this year. Kawhi Leonard can stretch the floor, so they have 3-point shooters that they can put around Ben Simmons in order for him to be successful and not have to line up on the 3-point line and have guys sag off of him, disturbing the offense. So I think the Los Angeles Clippers picking up Ben Simmons, this is definitely going to make the second half of the regular season in the Western Conference more interesting. We've seen a lot of these West Coast teams, they made some big time changes to their roster. We've seen the Golden State Warriors pick up Jimmy Butler. We've seen the Los Angeles Lakers get rid of AD and bring in Luka Doncic. We've seen the San Antonio Spurs bring in De'Aaron Fox. So this second half of the season is going to be crazy in the Western Conference, and I can't wait to see who's going to be the best and make those final 8 spots in the those final 8 spots in the Western Conference playoffs. But that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below. How do you feel about the Los Angeles Clippers bringing in Ben Simmons? And then if you enjoyed, please subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.